Hi, it's Steve Hargadon, and this is the Emergency Home Learning Summit. Today we have Barbara Bray with us. Welcome, Barbara.
Oh, thank you, Steve. It's so good to be here with you.
I'm excited to have you here. So, Barbara, what do you do?
um, let's just say I'm right now trying to stay healthy and be here for my family. And what I do is I love to learn about stories and tell my story and other people's stories. So that's kind of my thing right now is the power of stories.
Do you have a job?
No, I have me. My job is had my own business now for some years. I'm a consultant, um, and I also have consultants that contractors that work for me. So I've been doing that for several years. But I'm in a different world right now since the pandemic. It's changed a little bit.
What did you do before you did the consulting?
Well, I was a teacher, and I also taught at several universities. And way before that, before teaching, I was a dental hygienist. And yeah, got to throw that in. I did that for many years, and I taught dental hygiene. And when my children were born, that's when I realized I'm in the wrong profession. I love teaching. And so that's how I kind of moved from that.
It seems like in the last 10 years, there's been an increase in teacherpreneurs, teachers who become authors or speakers. Uh, is that a good thing?
Oh my gosh. It's so fantastic. Lately, I've been working with a lot of teachers who want to write, and I've had them on my own podcast, and um, their stories are amazing and they need to write. So, what I do is I try to do anything I can to help support them. I'll read their manuscripts, I'll make them go in different directions. I think we need to hear their stories.
Are you finding that the stories of schools and learning are being enriched by the diversity of voices now?
Oh, yes. I mean, even myself, I wrote 3 books, and my first 2 books on personalized learning, when I'm just gonna mention some names, is that okay? Paul Emmerich France, wrote his book on, the myths of personalized learning and mentioned why he didn't agree with some things in our book. It was really refreshing because our what we have to do is be open to change and open to learn and open to new ideas and but we also have to what he said is it's like we also have to kind of learn what they say on the shoulders of giants of people who were there before and give credit. Sometimes we forget that there's been a lot of people that have been doing a lot of work, um, and we can all learn together. And that's one thing I'm doing. I'm trying to always continue learning. And some of the things I'm doing, I'll share because it's been kind of fun.
One of the complaints I hear every once in a while is that people will say, we go through these cycles of understanding, learning, and then it gets lost and we have to come back to it again. Have you experienced that?
Oh, yes. Um, all the time. I told long ago, I said to my children, I said, I just love learning. So my daughter made me a plaque that said, I love learning. She says, I hear that all the time from you. And I go, I can't help it because it's like I thought I knew. And then every time I, I read a new book or I talk to someone else, I realize how much I didn't know. And I think that's what we want to continue doing. And I hope I continue doing that the rest of my life.
I wonder why there hasn't been a better institutionalization of some of the older voices. Like I've read stuff from the 60s and 70s and 80s that are they're just unknown right now, but they're grappling with the same issues we are. Do, why would that be?
Well, it's always been here. I think of Frere and Ilyich and um, some of the people in the 70s. I was reading gosh, I can't remember the title, The Oppression of the Educator or something from Frere. And I'm like, that sounds like it was just written because it's like we don't even realize that our system was set up in 1896 around subjects and grade levels and ages and it's not how we learn. We really learn by experiencing, and especially if it's authentic and meaningful. And unfortunately, when we made separate subjects, which is what we have, and we put people by ages in rooms, um, we have a lot of kids that get lost either on one end or the other, and or they just don't find it relevant to their lives. And so that's what people are finding out now, and that's what he wrote about then.
What percentage of students do you think graduate from high school as independent adults?
Oh gosh. There was a Gallup poll about engagement, and it said that um, there were fourth graders that were 76% were engaged. By the time they got to 10th grade, less than 40% were engaged. And so I hate to say that maybe 40 or 50%, which is a large number, but so many go to, leave school not sure what they're going to do, or they, like me, I went into dental hygiene because someone told me I'd be good at it. That's it. And then when I got accepted, I had to take the spot. And then I was kind of, it's not a bad profession, but I was stuck in it because I had to fill that spot or, it's just kind of scary that what happens to a lot of people because their parents told them to go in this or I call it, don't rent someone else's story, own your story, find your story, and then stick to it, fight for it. And that's what I've been doing. It's not real profitable, but it's not, but it enriches me in different ways.
Did your parents have a story about school? What were their expectations?
Oh, well, my mom was an entrepreneur. She was an artist who found her way through the McCarthy trials, becoming a courtroom artist just by sitting there drawing. When we moved to California, she was a courtroom artist in Maryland. And when we moved to California, my dad lost his job and she had to get a job. So she just went down during the Huey Newton trial, during the Black Panther trial, and got up to the bailiff and he says, "And who do you work for?" And she says, "All of them." And he said, "Oh, okay." So he gave her number one seat and she became a freelance artist and got a job with CBS, AP, and PBS. She did it all on her own. And so she pushed that kind of ideas and thought to me and my sisters, who are very entrepreneurial in their own ways, uh, that you can do anything if you put your mind to it. And so I really value that.
Did you have a teacher who changed your life?
Um, I didn't have real good K-12 experience, but I ended up in a community college in California because we moved the day after my graduation. I couldn't get into college out here. So I went to the most wonderful community college, and the English teacher, Mr. Davis, recognized my writing skills. And I wrote a poem about my trip. And he said, "This is really good. I want you to read it in the quad." And I was so nervous. I read it in the quad and it was long. Everyone stood there and they started crying and clapping, and they said, "You have to enter it in a contest," and I won a contest. And I wouldn't have done it without Mr. Davis.
Oh, that's very fun.
Yeah.
Do you have a philosophy of learning?
I believe that everyone has that true potential inside, that if we can be that, you know how Vygotsky says the more knowledgeable other, or um, if we can just be there for each other and support each other and then nudge them just a little bit, it's we got to give them the self-confidence that they can do anything if they give them the opportunities. And the problem is with learning, we don't always give everyone those opportunities. We have to figure out some way that we can provide the resources, the time, the space, um, and the support, so anybody can learn in from anywhere, anytime, any place. And that's my concern, is that I live in Oakland, California, and I worked in the Title I schools, and they're doing really well trying to provide access and resources, but it it's not as easy when you're growing up in high poverty areas, and you don't have those resources, or you don't have the support, or you don't have the parents that understand the educational benefits. There's so many things. So I just want to fight for everyone that wants to learn it, or and if they don't want to learn, show them that they have the potential. That's long,
It's
I'm sorry.
interesting. No, it's good because it sounds more like the art of influencing others than it does the mastery of content.
Oh, definitely. It's not about content. I mean, let's just be real. The content's out there. We just need to know if it's how to discern if it's real or not. That's the issue, is that we need to be able to be a little skeptical, curious, uh, be able to do our own research, and be able to hold a good debate on either side, and understand that it's okay if we're wrong. We can still learn why we why we might want to learn about the other side, or whatever issues are there.
Do you have advice for parents and students who have had to do schooling at home and are wondering what to do next?
um, I I wish I could work with teachers and stop homework. I think it's really hard for parents right now, especially if they have multiple children, at different age levels, and they are trying to balance everything. I wish there was a way parents could get more support, because um and also understand that it's not the content. It's right now, it's about keeping you safe, and knowing that you're loved. We have kids in real trouble right now, and parents in trouble. And we need to maybe stop and pause and really look at what is it we need more, is to keep those relationships there. I don't want to see any kids in trouble. And I think parents don't have the tools and need those tools. So if there is a child, their child, who may not talk to them about some issues, is okay about reaching out. Because I think right now, this is a really scary time. And I worry that parents are expected to do a lot, but teachers are expected to do way too much. And we need to build those partnerships more than we need to worry about the content. And we need to talk to administrators to let go of some of that.
I mean, for a long time, we've sort of disempowered parents. If you ask most teachers what's the most significant influence in a student's academic life, they'll almost always say the family, but we haven't really known how to help families. And so they've been somewhat disempowered, and now they're facing these challenges. How do you help a parent feel confident that they can help their children make educational decisions that may be non-traditional.
Well, we're working virtually, so I'd have more time, like office hours, so you can meet with the parents and the families, make it safe. So if they don't want to have um, Zoom on, video on, that's okay. Use phones, use what any way you can to reach out and build those relationships so they know that you're safe for them to talk to. Some families, they revere teachers. They don't feel they have a voice and they do whatever the teacher tells them. And a lot of times it's not that supportive. If the Same with language learners, if they don't have the language, we have to figure out more ways so we can connect, because maybe this pandemic did something. It opened our eyes to see the inequities, but it also the miscommunication, the the opportunities that we could and can still do by reaching out and spending time with the families more.
If you could give advice to that young self of yours who got admitted to dental hygiene school, what would that advice have been?
Um, you know, I'm okay that I would look back and say, you do it, girl. Do what you have to do at that time, because that experience helped me grow to become the person I am today. I I don't think I would have said, "Stop. You still could be a writer and a teacher or a dancer," because I was an artist. I wasn't a good artist. I was a great dancer though. But wasn't my role. I needed to go through what I went through, and I need to value all my experiences. And I would say, use this experience to help you grow and learn from every day and cherish every moment. That's my advice.
How important are difficult experiences?
I think everyone I've talked to on my podcast struggled somehow and learned from those struggles. If you don't struggle, you won't change. You have to have some um, something that makes you want to move forward, or you'll stay in the status quo in a comfortable position and say, I'm doing well. But deep down inside, if you're not happy, you're not going to change. And so I think we need to have some things that push us into those uncomfortable areas. And then we have to have courageous conversations with ourselves that says, hey, it's okay if we mess up and we make mistakes. We have to be, and then we also have to admit that we made those mistakes and we learned from them, because that's going to model that for others.
In an era of intense concern about safety, how do we help people become independent and do things that take risk?
Invite people that are afraid on a podcast, or to write with you. Or I've been inviting people. We had a Zoom um, call, a Zoom meeting that was secret, but we brought, instead of a Twitter chat, and some people that showed up never have done it before. I said, get some people who really you identify that this person is really a special person. I'm going to spend a little more time with you to make it so you can write, you can share, you can speak with me. There could be a lot of different things that you could do.
It sounds like you're describing something that a couple of others, Blake Bowles and Ken Danford, have talked about, which is the role of the non parental adult or the role of the non judgmental adult. Right? Like to be a mentor, to influence someone, there has to be a little bit of emotional distance so that they're able to make their own decisions, right? The parent is always going to be really closely tied.
Mhm. Wow, that's really good. I like that. Um, One of the things I found out, I was really fortunate to go to New Zealand, and I sat with some kids. They do year-long passion projects. And one of the things that I found out that was really exciting is when you're in a year-long project, you get to pick your mentors. And they could also be a younger child. It could be a business person. It could be someone other than, it could even be a grandparent. It could be, and that's what I call real learning. Because what you did is you identify that the teacher is not the only expert in the room anymore. And and I have to say, that's not fair to teachers. What we've done to teachers to say that you now are the only one that knows everything about this subject or whatever, and you're going to do this, then you're the one held accountable and responsible for the learning. And that's not fair. And so if you turn it over to a child or a learner at any age, an adult, anybody who wants to learn, that they get to choose who's going to support them in their learning, isn't that wonderful?
I'm Googling to see if I can remember the name of the fellow who called that walkabout learning.
Oh, I've
It
heard it
was,
before.
was it Maurice Gibbons?
Oh,
And he
yeah.
talked a lot about self-directed learning, and he talked about having a walkabout. It reminds me of the gap year concept.
Hmm.
Um, we have a daughter who took a gap year, and she said, is this okay? Of course, I said yes. I said, but just do something that you'll later feel good about. So she went and did a humanitarian program in Nepal for most of
Wow.
a year at the ripe age of 19. And so I thought, okay, that actually was wonderful. Now, it's not traditional, but it made a huge difference in her life.
That to me, that experiential learning that we need to do more, um, I think it's really important that we do service learning even young. We do intergenerational learning so you get to understand different generations. We were doing that in Oakland. It was wonderful. And then when No Child Left Behind came in, everything went back to prescriptive curriculum. So we have generations of kids and adults now who think that's okay. That prescriptive. So this is, I think that the pandemic has done something. Either it might open up the doors, or you're still going to have people teaching the same way they've always done it. I love that what you're doing, Steve, with the home learning summit. Some I've been watching, the different speeches and everything, and even my own series. I'm enjoying. I'm going to get a few more up there. um, what's been fun is that we can push the learning, and this might be an opportunity we weren't even aware of, that'll build the relationships more, will involve experiential learning, and help us look for other ways we can get the support we need so we can become the fullest potential we can become.
I talk a lot about the game of school, the way in which kids who kind of come from a background where their parents understood how schools worked and everything have an advantage. And the kids often who don't feel good about their school experiences didn't even realize that there was this kind of game being played,
Mhm.
right? The getting to class on time, making friends with the adults, figuring out which teachers were the best teachers. Is there a game of is there a game of virtual school? Meaning, are there things that certain kids are going to know how to do that other kids might not have any idea to do?
Yeah, my granddaughter. she she knows how to do the homework. She knows how to sit in the Zoom room and say the right things. She's not learning though. She knows it. She was talking to me about what, and I was thinking, you get these smart kids, they understand that, oh, I'll just raise my hand more. I'll just, I'll let them know I'm here, which is what kids do in school too. They know how to answer the right questions, but they're not asking they're not given the opportunity to ask the questions. So, um, I'm hoping we can kind of nudge those teachers that still did know the game. They're part of the game of school. Maybe we can nudge them to let go a little bit and start realizing that kids actually are pretty smart.
Well, one way I like to think about it is that there's winning at the game, which is the homework, grade, tests, college admissions game. But then there's actually winning the game, which is where you become a self-directed learner.
Mhm.
So I wonder about kind of the more explicit we can be about what's actually going on at school, it feels like the more likely that it is that students will understand that they can take charge of their own learning, which is really winning.
Do you think they might be doing that with their phones while the Zoom's on? Or, I mean, there might, they get, it's like they're smarter than we give them credit.
I think that's true. I worry that they're being sucked into some activities that are where they've kind of decided that this whole thing is a game and there's really no greater capacity. And so that they get sucked into mindless activities rather than
Mm.
realizing, oh, I could actually do something creative here.
That actually did happen. I worked with a school in this, I don't want to say it's in Southern California, and the kids were all upset. I was talking about personalizing learning, and they wanted to call me up, do a Skype. And there were 40, there were like 40 kids, and they were yelling at me saying, I'm going to get to high school. I want to get into this college. My parents want me to do this. I'm going to get this A, and you're telling me I have to do it, and the teacher's not. And I said, okay, I, I'll listen to all this. Why don't you make a Google Doc with questions, and I'll answer them all. They sent me 46 questions. I answered every one. I figured I may not have made a difference. Maybe one child, maybe, but you become compliant by fourth grade. Maybe kindergarten. You're told to follow certain rules. It's really hard to change that if a teacher or the parents or the system, it's the system. It's kind of like envelops you. And until it's you start seeing that it can be different. It's some kids are it's going to be tough. Oop, I can't hear. I
Thank
can't.
you. Thank you.
All of a sudden.
Yeah, no, thank you very much.